It was 4 a.m. when Russian missiles rained down on Kyiv. The sky was dark. The city shook. Most leaders would vanish. Volodymyr Zelenskyy stayed, a former comedian, now commander-in-chief. His decision wasn't political. It was personal. From that moment, Ukraine's survival became his mission. He didn't flinch. He led. Years earlier, he was famous for playing a president on TV, a humble schoolteacher who accidentally becomes head of state. The show was a hit. Then, in real life, the actor won Ukraine's election. But laughter didn't last long. Art became reality, and reality soon turned to war and fire. Zelenskyy grew up speaking Russian. It was his first language. But after the invasion, he made a choice. He would speak Ukrainian, always. Because language had become a battlefield, Russian was no longer just words. It was the voice of rockets, and Ukrainian became the voice of resistance and pride. Putin claimed he invaded to protect Russian-speaking Ukrainians, but those cities, Kherson, Mariupol, Kharkiv, were the first to be bombed. Entire blocks destroyed. Schools, hospitals, homes. Russian speakers were not protected. They were erased. The lie didn't just crumble. It screamed from every smoldering ruin Russia left behind in its advance. Zelenskyy's grandfather fought Nazis in World War II. He marched across Europe, wounded, decorated, and silent. He lost his family to fascism. He never spoke of violence, but he believed in justice. Today, his grandson leads another fight against a different dictator, a different lie, but the same kind of evil. In 2019, Zelenskyy sat across from Putin in Paris. Cameras flashed. Smiles were exchanged. They agreed to a ceasefire. For a moment, the world believed. But behind closed doors, Putin asked for land. Within weeks, Russian shells broke the silence. Peace was a photo op. War returned with thunder. Zelenskyy once spoke directly to Russians, in Russian, pleaded for peace, warned of bloodshed. But no answer came. Silence. Worse. Applause for war. It was like shouting to a drowning man while others just walked by. Ukraine was choking on its own history, and Russia turned its back, willingly deaf. In Mariupol, 20,000 civilians vanished beneath rubble. Some were buried alive, others executed. Zelenskyy calls it genocide. Russians called it liberation. Satellite images showed mass graves. Journalists smuggled footage out. The West watched, but too late. Mariupol became a symbol, not just of death, but of broken promises. In 1994, Ukraine gave up the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal. In return, the West promised protection, security assurances, not guarantees. When Russia invaded, those papers meant nothing. The Budapest Memorandum became history's cruelest footnote. Zelenskyy asked, "What would you do if you gave up everything and were left alone?" Zelenskyy agreed to ceasefires again and again, always hoping for peace. But each time, the guns returned. Russia signed with one hand, loaded with the other. Snipers trained on civilians. Truces were traps. He said, "It wasn't a piece of toilet paper. It was supposed to save lives." Zelenskyy knew war wasn't just on the battlefield. It was on screens. Russian disinformation flooded social media. So he stepped in front of the camera. Not in a bunker, not with CGI, on the street. "I'm here," he said. One video stopped a nation from falling into fear. As tanks approached Kyiv, Zelenskyy made a shocking order: hand out rifles to civilians, lawyers, bakers, artists. They queued, not for bread, but bullets. For many, it was the first time holding a gun. They weren't soldiers, but they became defenders. This wasn't surrender. This was survival with spine. Zelenskyy called Belarusian leader Lukashenko. Missiles had launched from his soil. Lukashenko apologized, claimed it wasn't him, it was Putin. But apologies don't bury the dead. Zelenskyy replied, "Then you're a murderer too." In this war, silence is complicity, and complicity has consequences. On invasion night, Zelenskyy wasn't just a president. He was a father, a husband, but he walked out that door to lead. He told his wife, "Get the children ready." Then he vanished into duty. He never came back the same. His family became the country. His burden became a nation's. Zelenskyy draws eerie parallels. Hitler rose while Europe looked away. So did Putin. Fascism doesn't always wear swastikas. Sometimes it wears suits, signs treaties, then bombs hospitals. History warned us once, but we didn't listen. Now Ukraine bleeds and begs the world not to make the same mistake twice. February 24th, 2022. 3:45 a.m. Missiles hit. Kyiv awoke to war, not from rumors, but from fire. Zelenskyy had asked the West for sanctions before the bombs fell. He begged, "If you're sure the attack is coming, act." But words were cheaper than action. The missiles answered before they did. Ukraine's secret weapon, not just drones or javelins, it was digital. When cities were surrounded, banks still worked, TV still aired, the internet held. Zelenskyy turned this network into a lifeline, broadcasting, updating, inspiring. Russia spread chaos. Ukraine replied with signal strength and resolve. Zelenskyy ditched suits for olive green shirts. It wasn't branding, it was armor. Visual solidarity. He spoke to parliaments, presidents, people, all dressed like a soldier. No medals, no ribbons, just fatigue-colored fabric and fatigue-lined eyes. The world noticed. So did his enemies. Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka. Cities most had never heard of, now infamous for the dead left in streets. Civilians shot with hands tied, mass graves behind kindergartens. Zelenskyy walked the ruins. He didn't speak at first. There were no words strong enough to explain what he saw. Only grief. Zelenskyy says Trump could stop Putin, not with charm, but with strength. But strength without guarantees is a gamble. Ceasefires fail. Sanctions fade. Time always favors the tyrant, unless someone resets the balance, not by talking about peace, but by making war impossible to restart. Zelenskyy warns, ceasefires without security guarantees are suicide. He's seen them before, signed in Paris, broken in Donbass. What will I tell the children in occupied cities, he asks, that we stopped fighting and left them behind? A fake peace buys time for the invader, not for the innocent. Ukraine doesn't want charity. It wants justice. Zelenskyy proposes using $300 billion in frozen Russian assets to rebuild and defend. Let Russian money pay for Russian crimes, he says. Not aid, not loans. Consequence, a new kind of warfare. Financial retribution, 1 ruble at a time. Zelenskyy knows NATO won't accept Ukraine whole. Not yet. But what if just the parts still free? A divided membership, an imperfect shield. But even an imperfect shield is better than open sky. A red line must be drawn where Russia cannot cross again. Can we forgive? He's asked. Zelenskyy answers slowly. Justice comes before peace. How can a father forgive his child's killer if the killer walks free? Some wounds won't heal, but without truth, without punishment, they'll fester. Peace without justice is just silence. Before the next war, in a world of exits, Zelenskyy stayed. While others fled palaces, he filmed from bunkers. While others ducked questions, he looked dead into the lens. He lost time with his children, friends, even his old self, but gained something few leaders do, a place in history written in ash and fire. Zelenskyy reminds us Russia signed treaties, Budapest, Minsk, Paris. They signed in ink, then attacked in steel. Each agreement was a trap, each handshake a setup. You can't negotiate with a man who prepares the battlefield while speaking peace, he said. The pen meant nothing to a man holding a gun. The Normandy format. France, Germany, Ukraine, Russia met to stop war. Promises of de-escalation, prisoner swaps, ceasefire lines. But Putin used it to stall, not solve. Zelenskyy said, he only listens to force, not logic. The West saw diplomacy. Russia saw delay as a weapon. Captured Russian snipers confessed they were training in Donbas, but their mission wasn't war, it was hunting. Ukrainian civilians became targets for real-life war games. Later, these same snipers turned up in Syria and Africa. Zelenskyy said, we were the testing ground. And no one stopped it. In occupied Donetsk and Crimea, teenagers were drafted by force. 18-year-olds given guns, told to fight or die. Some vanished. Others were sent to front lines with no training. They're not soldiers, Zelenskyy said. They're hostages in uniform. Russia turned childhood into cannon fodder. Putin claims Russians and Ukrainians are one people. But if that's true, why the bombs? Why the blood? Zelenskyy rejects this myth. If we are one, why do you slaughter us? He asks. Nations are built on consent, not conquest. And Ukraine never consented. Zelenskyy pleaded for sanctions before the invasion, not after the missiles flew. Sanctions after death mean nothing to the dead, he said. The world waited. Putin didn't. And by the time banks froze, bodies had fallen. Deterrence delayed is deterrence denied. Russian propaganda claims Zelenskyy fled and used green screens. So he walked Kyiv's streets on camera. Look at my city, he said. I'm not hiding. His courage wasn't digital. It was physical, tangible. A president's presence became Ukraine's resistance. Before war, Zelenskyy ran a TV studio. That skill saved lives. He turned press rooms into command centers. Messaging became ammunition. Truth became strategy. If we don't control the narrative, he said, they will. In this war, cameras were as vital as tanks. On the first night of war, Zelenskyy looked out his window. Kyiv was silent, then shattering. Sirens, fire, a sky full of metal. I watched my children sleep, he said, and I left them for a nation. That night, he stopped being a man. He became a moment. When the internet held, Ukraine held. Hackers tried to bring it down. Missiles targeted towers, but engineers kept the lights on. Civilians spread updates. Teenagers posted frontline videos. Ukraine didn't just fight on land, it fought in bandwidth, and it wouldn't disconnect. In the earliest hours, Zelenskyy gave one command: arm the people. No background checks, no red tape. Trucks arrived. Rifles handed out to bakers, teachers, taxi drivers. If they enter Kyiv, he warned, they'll face all of us. In Ukraine, citizenship became combat. As men stayed to fight, women and children fled west. At border crossings, mothers held sobbing children in one arm and phone calls to husbands in the other. Go, they said. We'll win. Then we'll find you. Goodbye became a promise written in frost. One orphanage near Mykolaiv refused evacuation, not out of defiance, but fear. No one knew where was safer. We'll stay, the headmistress said. If the children die, I will die with them. She fed them, sang to them as drones flew above. Not all battles use bullets. Russian TV called the invasion a liberation. But in Mariupol, nothing was left to liberate. Hospitals destroyed, pregnant women buried under rubble. If this is rescue, Zelenskyy said, then let the world see what rescue looks like. Footage leaked. The lie unraveled. Zelenskyy posted a video outside his office. I'm here. We're all here. It went viral, not just online, but across nations. Morale surged. Western leaders watched. Some sent aid, others sent promises. One video, one night, one man standing still while the world shifted. Days after missiles launched from Belarus, Zelenskyy received a call. Lukashenko apologized, claimed it wasn't his order. I didn't press the button, he said, but Zelenskyy responded coldly. Then you're still guilty. You opened the gate. Silence followed. Apology was too late. The missiles had already landed. Lukashenko tried to offer trade. Strike the Mazur oil refinery, he suggested. A symbol, a target. But Zelenskyy declined. I'm not like you, he said. He wasn't looking for revenge. He wanted defense. Unlike his enemies, he didn't weaponize civilians. In those first weeks, Ukraine stood alone. Letters were sent to Budapest signatories, US, UK, Russia. The security guarantees? Forgotten. They didn't even reply, Zelenskyy said. Paper meant nothing. Only action did. And no one acted. Not then. Zelenskyy remembered his grandfather's war, a man who fought Nazis, lost his brothers, buried family in mass graves. He believed war was the greatest tragedy, he said, and he would never believe I'd live to fight another. But here Zelenskyy was in another war, in the same soil. When missiles struck near Babin Yar, a Holocaust memorial, Zelenskyy was shaken. His relatives had died there. This land remembers, he said, and now it burns again. What kind of war bombs memory itself? Russia wasn't erasing Ukraine's military, it was trying to erase its past. NATO promised eventual membership, but the door was never fully open. Zelenskyy asked, how long do we wait outside, bleeding? He proposed a partial path, protection for the territory Ukraine still held. Not a perfect peace, but a firewall. Without it, he warned, history would repeat itself. Zelenskyy dreamed of a table, 3 chairs, one for Trump, one for Putin, and one for himself. not to shake hands, but to end a war. But you can't negotiate with someone who feeds on fear, he said. You need strength first, then talks, never the other way. Millions of Ukrainian children live under occupation, some taken to Russia, others taught in rewritten books. Zelensky's voice trembled. How do I tell them we paused the war and left them behind? Ceasefires without guarantees aren't peace, they're betrayal. And I refuse to betray them, he said. Zelensky warned. Forget this war, and it will return. He's not done, he said of Putin. He'll wait, rebuild, and strike again. History shows us, when tyrants aren't stopped, they don't stop. Memory is armor. Forgetting is surrender. He's not perfect, not fluent in English, not invincible. But when the world thought Kyiv would fall in 72 hours, he stayed. When others fled, he stood. I'm here, he said. And sometimes history turns not with armies, but with one man drawing a line.